How do we choose what we do with our lives? That's an interesting subject, considering the fact that most of us don't actually make that choice. It's generally made for us. If we consider Sigmund Freud's psychosexual changes during the first 5 years of our lives, essentially leading to the time when we wonder at first what we might do. A little kid wants to be a policeman or a fireman or a soldier or a doctor. The fact of the matter is that most little kids, when they first wonder what they want to be, or first begin to identify with a particular lifestyle, they usually do it because they've been influenced by an adult. See, generally speaking, children internalize their parents' choices, their parents' behavioral patterns, and or relatives or the adults that are influential in their lives for one reason or another. How many children have a particular image in their minds when they're 4 or 5 years old that they actually realize later in life? You know, the ones who dream about being a police officer, how many of them actually become a police officer? Some do, most don't. Many who dream about being a doctor, some do, most don't. Interestingly, even the ones who actualize their projected identities from childhood don't become the kind of individual or that particular kind of person that they dream of, because as an adult, the generalization of how to behave and what it means to be a particular kind of person changes. The relationship between the ego identity as projected and the relationship to socioeconomic life in terms of the communal structure changes. It becomes a question of generally selfishness, greed, a determination of I want this for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with the overall goodness, the overall universalization of that particular feeling that was associated with the identification of that thing, that job, that function, that relationship with the community. Michael Jackson never wanted to be a singer. He was pushed into it by his father. Of course, he was, super talented, and it was natural to him. But he had no childhood. He didn't choose the path. It was chosen for him. And yet all this judgment was heaped upon his shoulders. Why? Because he and we generally follow a path that happens fortuitously. From our point of view, from the individual's point of view, but it happens precipitously from the point of view created by those around us, those adults around us. It's very odd how we choose the way we spend our lives, because we don't usually choose it. It usually just happens. Well, part of it is choice. Part of it is an independent, subjective choice, but a very small part of it is actually that kind of choice. Because we really don't know what we're doing when we're young. We really have no understanding of the way the world is. We don't understand how corrupt the world is. We have no conception of how the world is. We only think of how the world should be, or how the world could be. But the fact of the matter is that from the standpoint of the power structure and those who regulate the way the world is run, it's steeped in corruption, in selfishness. Man is still an animal. There's no question about that. Maybe, we can say that there's growth, there's slow ascendance. From an industrial and technological point of view, there may be growth spurts that appear to be quick, but from an emotional and a generalized feeling or natural point of view, the growth of man is slow, very slow. Man has only been around for a couple of million years. It's very slow. So how do we choose what to do with our lives? I remember when I was 4 years old, and my father came home and he was transformed from cancer. His hair was stark white. His face was gaunt. His body was thinned, weakened. He looked so fatigued. His energy was stripped. He was a different person. His voice was, for the most part, gone. His vocal cords were, in large measure, removed, cut out. He had cancer of the vocal cords. And I said to my mother, well, what happened to Daddy? And she said, well, he had cancer. And I said, well, what does that mean? Well, she said he could die. He was affected by a virus. She assumed it was a virus. Certainly it was genetic in origin as well. And I wondered, what should I do with my life at the time? And I said, I should become a doctor. I should discover the cure for cancer, because that was something that was important. And I was affected by examples like Moses. And I was affected by examples like Galileo and Newton and Einstein and Faraday and Pasteur and great thinkers. And as I was growing up, I was dreaming about, being someone relevant, doing something with my life that was important. But there were so many things that happened. It doesn't matter what the details are. What was important was that everything I tried to do, everything I wanted to do, everything I dreamed of doing, held blockages, barriers, and I fought to be who I wanted to be. Most people don't. Most people just let it happen. Most people fall into a path, and generally they take the path of least resistance instead of the path of logical persistence. Most people just don't develop into the people that they dream of because it's too hard. It's just too hard. I remember when I graduated from college, I got an offer to go on the road with a band. I was a professional musician, and my friend Harold Paris, who was a great drummer, called and said, we got an offer to go on the road. And I said, well, I'm going to professional school. I'm starting in September. I can't go on the road. Of course I wanted to go, but I didn't. I wouldn't. I couldn't. I was worried that I had to make a living. I had to make a living. I had to think about money. Not what I wanted to do. Not what I felt like doing. Not what I dreamed of doing. And it wasn't that I dreamed of becoming a musician. I was a musician. But most of us, they simply don't follow what we feel at the moment. We don't follow a natural course. We just fall into the path. We fall into an easy road. And we don't fight it. We don't fight it because there are just too many obstacles. And it just requires too much energy, too much dedication to follow the path that you really want to follow. So we just don't do it. So how do we choose what we do with our lives. Most often we don't. We do what's expedient. We do what's simple. We don't fight to become who we want to become, who we should become. We don't fight to make the choice for ourselves. We permit the community, we permit the society, we permit the environmental particularities to make the choice for us. And then we look back later in life and we say, why did we do that? Why did we make those choices? Well, we didn't really. But we did. We made the choice not to make the choice. We chose not to choose. That's the difference. So the point that I'd like to make today is that choose what you are. Choose who you are. Choose the direction that you follow. No matter what happens, make your choice for yourself, because you only have one life. You only follow the path through life once. And by the time you get old and look back, it's too late. It's just too late. So whatever path you choose in your 20s and 30s, especially, make sure it's the path you want. That doesn't mean that you can't change your orientation, that you can't change your path at any time during your lifetime. You can. You can be 70 years old and change your path. You might as well, because you still only live once. And forget about what people think about you. Forget about how people judge you. It's totally irrelevant. Because you come, you stay for a while, and then you leave this place. And they will forget you regardless. And even if they don't forget you, they will not speak of you accurately. You can't depend on them to be honest. You can't depend on them to be real. To this day, they don't speak about Michael Jackson in an accurate way. You know, that individual was extraordinarily talented, sensitive, decent, and yet what they say is negative, derogatory. Too many of them. So what difference does it make? Makes no difference whatsoever what anybody thinks, whatever anybody says about you. You have to be yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to follow your own path. You have to choose the path for your life. Because if you don't choose your own path and you just let it happen, there will be extraordinary regret. And in order to avoid regret, be who you are. Be who you want to be. Be who you should be. Choose the life that's natural to you. And that's the only way you can possibly be happy anyway. And that's my message for today. In order to be happy, in order to fulfill the naturalness of your life, you have to choose what you really will and not fall into a path that is dictated by the vicissitudes of what's around you. Be who you are. Be natural, be real. You'll be happy. Because when you're not real, and when you just let other people dictate what you become, you won't be happy and you'll be regretful. That's basically my message for today. Fly. Fly in, your own dreams. That's what you need to do. Hey.